Welcome, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. I'm very excited to introduce our guest to you as always. But before we do, there are some folks that I'd like to thank that we always thank. We'd like to thank brassandwinds.com, a Quinn the Eskimo company. When we're looking for brass and wind instruments, we always go to brassandwinds.com, and we think you should too. They're a fantastic company, and they've done us a lot of good over the years. Check them out at brassandwinds.com. Are you interested in learning how to play the piano for free? Come try our class out at Truer MU. It's a better way to learn piano. Would you rather study with a person than online? Check us out at Willow Music, willowschoolga.com. It's a better way to learn music. We'd love to see you. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce a new friend of mine. He's laughing because this is Peterson that I'm interviewing. And he is a recording artist who studied electrical engineering at MIT, math and music at Oberlin College, and biostatistics at the University of Washington. He was an artist in resident in Michigan for a while. He was also the founding music director of the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. He has a number of albums out, including Soul Stretch, Air. I'm not sure which is the title. We'll find that out. There's so much to talk about. Peterson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure too. For your sake and for the audience's sake, I'll let you know that you've been in my consciousness for a long time. Those of you who tuned in to Steve Espinola's interview know that I've known Steve for many years. And because of Steve, I've been aware of you for many, many years.
Okay, yes.
So you're really in my consciousness. And yet this is our very first conversation, which is a little odd.
Yes, really. I've known Steve for about 40 years. We first met in summer camp when we were both teenagers. And he actually did my first real recording, and that was at the summer camp at this remote cassette recorder that was of very high quality. And it was pretty magical back then, and I've been trying to recreate that experience ever since, really.
That is interesting. Well, we'll get back to that in just a second. I'd like
Sure.
to cover your whole history. Let's start with
Okay.
before the part that I know, before the camp.
Wow.
I know you were born and grew up in the Bronx, and this was in the
Yes,
late
that's true.
60s, early 70s.
Yes.
Is it my imagination, or is that a tough time to grow up in the Bronx?
Um, I'd say it wasn't tough for me, but I mean, my parents were, uh, you know, pretty happy people at that time. Eventually, they did split up, but they were, it was not bad at all. We moved to a place called Co-op City, which is 33 high-rise buildings out on the edge of the Bronx, and a lot of friends there, a lot of people that, just a lot of love there, good community. So not so bad, not so bad.
Was there a lot of music out there?
There was some. In my teenage years in the Bronx, I was part of a group called Horizon, and we did a bunch of shows, both paid and unpaid. There were, fairs and people's weddings and occasions and stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, listening to pop radio and American Top 40 with Casey Kasem and then going into the new wave era with videos and stuff like that. Lots of friends to do that with, to hang out and try not to get into too much trouble, but get into a little trouble.
So it sounds like your experience of music was largely a take it in from the media experience.
um, Goodness, that okay. My experience of music has just been, it's always been there. Like my relationship with instruments are just like an extension of myself. From a very early age, I was singing and just grabbing toy instruments and playing what I heard on the radio. And not that it was instantaneous, it wasn't that kind, but I would just practice and, oh, look, I got a little melody here, and isn't that cool? Um, and yeah, so yeah, and listening to like the bus change maker machine go chicka 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 chicka, and then kind of doing a little drum beat in the back of the bus with that, with my brother, who's also pretty musical. And just finding sounds everywhere to be very interesting to me. So
So
that's
you were, let me revise then.
sure, sure.
You were highly sensitive to music and you picked it up
Yes.
everywhere,
Oh
including
yes.
recordings that turned you on.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything, any sound, anything was potential fodder for music. Mhm.
Do you have a good story about that? You already gave us the good bus change story. You have another one like that? That's good stuff.
Oh goodness. Boy. Let me think. Um, oh boy. Nope. Sorry.
Okay.
That's I'm not good on the fly like that.
Well, if you think of
Uh,
one, you can say, "Oh, I got it," and then we'll
yes.
go
Yeah. Yeah.
back.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you can edit. Yeah.
Oh, well,
That's
sure, but I mean,
good.
so
Right.
I know for a fact from reading another interview with you that
Yeah.
you decided you chose guitar at, I think it was age 13, as when you finally got to pick an instrument or had to pick an instrument. Which was it?
Oh, okay. So guitar was 8. I was 8.
8.
And the first song I learned was Proud Mary. Um, and it was I had a choice between either guitar or piano, and guitar seemed more portable. Uh, so I chose the portable instrument. And by the time I was 13, though, I had written my first song, and and so 13 was a summer where I went up to for the first time this Quaker summer camp called Farm and Wilderness. That was very important for me, where they really supported. Actually, that was the first place where I realized that what I had to offer with music might be special. So I had written this song, and then I went up to this camp and I started playing this song that I wrote, and people were like, "Play that again." I'm like, really? I mean, okay, I'll play it again. That play that. It was that kind of thing. So it was a little summer camp hit.
Yeah.
The name of the song was called "I've Had All I Could Take." It wasn't. I don't know. It was sort of an angry Michael Jackson tune, if you can picture that. I don't know. um, uh, yeah. Anyway.
So you're 13 and you've had all you can take. What had you had all you could take of? Or were you just imitating what you'd heard? Was that from the
Uh,
heart or was that I'm going to write a song like what I know?
um. Well, unfortunately, it was from the heart. There was a Oh goodness. Well, the reason why I was sent away was there was a family tragedy, and I was writing about that in the abstract, but my parents sent me away to summer camp to just let everything blow over a bit. Um, so yeah, it and I mean it did. Kids are resilient, but yeah, it was definitely stemmed by a personal loss. Mhm.
And what happened was that not only were you able to express this loss, you received positive feedback when you
Yeah,
expressed it. That's got to have
it
been great.
it it was remarkable. It was really. I mean, up to that point, anything I did musically in the household wasn't. My parents weren't really up for raising a musician. They wanted a scientist or somebody who was going to be a scholarly person, which explains sort of my thread in that direction. Um, but music has had a strong pull, and that's yeah, that's to say just like yeah, a very strong pull. Not I've tried to get away a few times actually.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's why I found it interesting that your decision to play guitar was
yeah,
based on it being portable. You're
yeah,
such a sonic guy. You sounds are everything to you, and music is
yeah,
everything to you. And you made a
yeah.
practical decision about the instrument you chose. How did you decide on that?
Yeah. Well, I come from practical people. We look at the bottom line. We balance budgets, um, and for me, the guitar seemed really affordable, and it seemed like the piano. I would always be looking for something, uh, and that would be a part of the furniture that they may or may not have. And at the time, like in the mid '70s, to buy anything, was a little spendy. So I decided to give my parents and eventually me a break because um, yeah, by playing the guitar, and eventually I did end up playing a little bit of piano also and other instruments. But yeah, it was I grew up a very practical little kid.
Are you still practical like that?
Um, the short of it is yes. The long of it is um, life has happened, and life is not linear or practical, nor does it care about you know the things that you're going to try to control. It really just unfolds, and I've learned to let a lot of that in, let the unfolding in. And so I have a lot of practicality and a lot of experience making sure things, looking at hard numbers, both, kind of financially, but also statistically. Um, but I, I've learned it's quite healthy to blow a little bit of air in there and let things float sometimes. So,
Well, I first was introduced to your voice on a tape of Steve Espinola's, as I said, and I
okay.
was struck. My first impression, of course, my introduction to Steve was a watershed moment for me. Just hearing that tape, and you're a part of that, and your work contrasted his in some ways. And the thing I
Which
first
tape
thought
was
of,
that? Was
oh, that
that
was
Two Guys in a Doorknob or
Angelfish.
Angelfish?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
my
Mm-hmm.
introduction. I don't
Okay.
know that I ever got the doorknob tape. I look forward to hearing that. But
Mm,
what I noticed about you instantly was I felt like this is somebody that takes themselves very seriously.
mm, okay.
Is that, do you think, was that what you were? Let's talk about the meeting between you and Steve. I think that's an important moment for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So Steve was the guy who had all the gear. Um, and so I was a guy who, like, when I met Steve, I was just sort of, I was writing songs and I tried, I had the little kind of school tape recorder thing and, it sounded pretty bad. Um, and my only experience trying to make multi tracks was like, okay, I can play that little tape recorder through an amp and then record it with another recorder and play along with it, and this is multi track. And
Right.
um, Steve had a reel to reel tape recorder. He had a graphic equalizer from his dad, and he just had real, like, when I met him, he had just recorded this Christmas song
Mhm.
that got airplay on the radio,
Rock and roll
and
Christmas.
like I don't rock and roll Christmas. Okay, yes, you're Steve.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
um, and so like that entire summer at that camp, he was the first person I'd ever met who actually had like he was in just I was in awe of him the entire summer. I didn't play the guitar the entire summer until like the last like 3 days. He's like, "What you play?" Yeah, I wrote a bunch of songs, and it's like, "Play," and then we hit it off and
How old were
started.
you?
I was 16. He was 15. Almost exactly a year apart. I'm February 9. He's February 7.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, and oh yes, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
I
And I'm 52.
yes, yeah. Yes, yes, I'm 55. We're all like in the middle age, right? Very holding it,
That's all right. That's
hugging
all
it.
right. So
Um,
what before we I want to talk about this
yes.
camp a lot. What was this camp that you were sent to?
Yeah. So this was important. This was a Quaker summer camp in Vermont. Um, and I went from when I was every summer from when I was 13 until when I was 18 when I was a camp counselor there. And then I went again when I was 21 and it was a camp counselor there. And to this day, I'm more Quaker than anything else. I'm not particularly religious, but I believe in those values. And this is where I have some roots with, oh, I guess string band music. Um, So wasn't particularly feeling like I fit in as a 13-year-old black boy from the Bronx in this Vermont setting. Uh, and but I did find that I could play the music that was the square dance music, and it was a live band, and so I went. For the square dances, I didn't mess with like trying to walk across the big long wood hallway to the girls where the separate boy and girl camps. You never saw the girls until the dances, and then you had to like walk across in order to ask somebody. And like, really? Am I? Yeah, screw that. No, no. Oh, there's a band. Oh, and I can play the guitar. I'll be a band member playing the guitar, and that was a good move. That so initially, what I did for I guess a few years was I would play like uh like there would be this square dance music that and I would be playing like chic guitar
Right.
to this square dance music because this is what I thought was good. And it was only a few years later as a teenager that somebody, this tall white man with a beard, very Quaker looking, said, well, the way you really should play this kind of music is doom 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 doom. And I was just like, really? That's really boring. And I stopped playing in the string band, but but for a little while after
But you
that.
got a few years in there where you turned it into
Oh
something,
yeah, oh
into not
yeah,
square dancing.
and there were girls and boys in the string band all avoiding that long walk across or waiting for and then so I got to dance with the people that I already knew, which was that's cool.
Yeah.
um and I didn't have to like introduce myself and all that stuff. So anyway,
That is a
that's
great story.
that's the camp.
Yeah. So Steve told me, here's Steve's side of the story about you.
Sure,
You've
sure.
denigrated yourself quite a bit in this story, but Steve's version of the story is that he met this guy who was just this recording genius who could like figure out, oh, if I put this microphone right here, it is going to change, and it did. Like the sonic quality of those recordings on Angelfish are phenomenal. And then there are these interesting arrangements that he said he could never have done that you had a hand in. Is that true?
Oh, okay. So that was quite a few years later. And I mean, all of that stuff. I mean, the arrangement of music is as interesting, if not more, than the actual writing of the song. If you know, initially I wrote songs so that I could arrange the music around them,
Mm,
or I put words to the music so that people might listen to the arrangement. Um, which is a little bit backwards. It's
mhm.
not that way anymore, but that's how I started with writing songs with words per se, with the exception of that first one, which just sort of came out. And
Yeah.
then after that, I was like, oh, let me write some music. Oh, people like words to it. Let me put some words to it. Like I love you. Oh yeah, people like that. Okay, I'll put I love you too. And I want you back, and I didn't mean it. Stuff like that. I would just
Right.
grab really stock phrases and put them. um, so a lot of my earlier stuff was really just an excuse to try and be around instruments and make the music sound as good as possible. So when I met Steve, who actually had decent words as a teenager, like
Yeah.
and he had some chops on the piano. I thought, oh, let me, Steve, can I just apply a few of these arrangement ideas? And and let's put the mic in a slightly different area, and let's have some fun here. And so we'd have these really fun weekends where, like, if it was Memorial Day or if it's some sort of long weekend, I might take a Greyhound up and we do these recording sessions as teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so you were at MIT, and then you
Yes.
ended up transferring to Oberlin, where Steve was, and where I was.
Y- yes. Yes. So MIT, that's the practical side. I got in, and I'm kind of a big nerd, and I thought, well, MIT, that's where all nerds go, or at least a lot of them. And but I was pretty unhappy there. A lot of math and science and a lot of cool people I met. Um, but I really felt like I wanted more warm and fuzzies also. And so there were a couple of people, there are actually a few people who at the same time I transferred to Oberlin from the same circle I was in also transferred uh, to Oberlin. And there was a trip that happened while I was at MIT to Oberlin just to visit my friend Steve and a friend of mine who had another friend at Oberlin. And um, at Oberlin, in those 3 days of the trip, I made more friends than I made in the first year at MIT.
Wow.
Um, and I thought, oh, okay, let me grab me some of this. This is, I mean, MIT's cool and all, but I kind of need to. I think I fit more here, so that's what started me transferring to Oberlin. It took about a year because had to wait for the financial aid to come through. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
your bio says you studied math and music at Oberlin. Were you a music major?
No. I studied. Okay, I studied math and biopsychology at Oberlin, and I did a lot of I did at least one show semester with Steve or by myself or with the. I think most of them like all but one was with Steve. So he was already like a person rocking the campus when I got there, and I just sort of stepped in to be part of that, and that's pretty darn excellent. We um, our shows were really imperfect masterpieces. Like we would masterpiece. I don't know. That's a big word for that. But like we would just sort of prepare as much as we could, and we'd just get up there, and it would be warts and all. And like it just would be a bunch of friends in the audience, and we both had a lot of friends at Oberlin, so it'd be a full, it was like an occasion. Like people would come and they would gather, and then we'd get through a song where we'd only have three or four mistakes, or and then you're like, yay, it's just like just the joy of I don't know, being in college and liking the people you're around and having people who reflected your values and playing music and all that stuff. But it wasn't like this polished, rehearsed thing that we had there, which really was counter to my sensibilities. Like I like polish, I like but it showed me, okay, well, there's a space and a place for and you know and it's cool. It's cool sometimes to be a little bit rough around the edge.
And for those that don't know, Oberlin has a world class conservatory attached to it. So you were
They
surrounded by polish.
Oh yeah, yeah, like well, just the best musicians that I've I have ever met were at Oberlin and not in the conservatory. They were all like people who were attracted to Oberlin's conservatory, but like religion majors or psychology majors, or Steve was creative writing. Um, I mean, these were everybody, each person I met was like a creative force, not just like a member, but like somebody who, like, in their own right was writing and arranging and had their band or whatever that it was pretty amazing time. I'm really glad I went. I'll put it that way. That it was an excellent, and it hasn't, no other experience has measured up to it since then musically.
And you were still recording with Steve, including some interesting experiments like
Oh yeah.
watching clouds go by, where you actually recorded outside in a snowstorm.
Yes. So yeah, we were experimenting with like, okay, so if we could string a microphone outside, and Steve, if you lay down on your back on the snow and put the mic on your chest, so we get the warmth of your voice. I want the warmth. Um, and just all sorts of strange things. But with that one, look at clouds and lay on the snow, and sing about clouds, and that all sorts of things. We went to like this long hallway just to get the reverb of the hallway in that song. We're like like this middle part where we didn't know what we were going to sing, but we just sang some stuff in a hallway and recorded it because the hallway was echoey.
Yeah.
um, so each of our recordings with Steve in particular, I really started to enjoy the idea that we might be mobile. Um, that with that one, with watching clouds go by, I had a 4-track cassette tape recorder at that time, and we could, it was only, I don't know, it's pretty huge by today's standards, but at least I could carry it, and so I would carry it to anywhere with an electrical outlet and record there, and that was sort of a continuation to from 6 years previous as teenagers, and he had this battery operated tape recorder that was of high quality. So yes, yes, recording outdoors.
How important is this idea of intent and exploration, do you think, in not just your recordings, but in the professional recordings that you have been listening to?
Yeah. Um, so I think let's see. So professional recordings, um, well, there's a degree of let's see. Well, there's a large degree of non musicality in it. It's just a lot of hard work. Like you get a recording, you capture it in a pretty like a kind of a sanitary setting where like there's no echo, and you add every like there's it's anechoic. You're in an anechoic chamber, and then you add spices and things, and you take out breaths, and you reduce the S sounds. You do a lot of that kind of thing, and a lot of that is, well, frankly, it's very unsexy work. It's just a grind. And then at the end, though, you get something where like the person's voice every time they open up their mouth is like right there in your face with the instruments coming through with no errors. Um, and if there are errors, it's oh, let's put an error in. Isn't that's going to be a hook there, that error, like
Yeah.
um uh I'm not sure I'm answering a question. I've lost myself.
Well, the question's about intent. I mean, I think a
Yes.
lot about, what albums are great and what albums are not, and why,
Yeah.
and how much of that has to do with what was their process, and what were they
Yes.
trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess pretty much, well, I don't think any musician or a lot of, well, okay, I'm not going to make a blanket statement because I know some musicians, making the error is part of the thing, and that's totally valid, and sometimes that's what I want to hear when I listen, like to a recording. Um, but I think there's a reference. You reference other music, but you also reference the times. Um, you want to, you just what's filtering through you. What's going on. Like with this, soul stretch, you got like a bunch of cubes, a bunch of people and a bunch of people with masks on, and we couldn't get together for an album photo. It was unsafe, but it was safe to, take pictures ourselves, and you know, and then arrange it in cubes.
Yeah.
um, and but something that you didn't see because you don't have the album is like on the inside they're in circles because you know and they're different shapes, and the contributions, and people are not squares, and they're not masks, and they're, but it's that
Ah,
thing where, referring to, like, yeah, we may look like squares to each other, but love is of many flavors and shades and shapes, and that's part of what Air, which is the name of the album, and Soul Stretch, which is the name of the group,
okay.
uh, which I borrowed from 30 years ago. Um, Actually, there are people from Soul Stretch on this album, so
Wow.
yeah, that happened by accident. Also, they
That's
happened to
okay.
move into, what?
Yeah. So this idea of accidents that you
Oh,
kind of
yes.
found that worked with Steve, you've adopted and made it a part of who you are.
Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, like the glorious accident, or um and sometimes well, okay, so part of my process is I sort of build in, the restriction. So, like, for this project, uh I bought this mobile recorder. This is Zoom H6 mobile recorder, which is a 6-track thing. And I just decided, okay, I'm using this. Uh, you know, um, but in order to use it and not get totally frustrated, I need a big battery. So, it runs on AA. So I've got a big battery, and I'm going to use, like, this. Uh, well, it's a mic stand, but it fits in a backpack. It's totally portable. It's not big. So these are the devices, and this is the frame by which I'm doing this recording. Everything goes through this, um, and that is, in a nutshell, how I do a lot of recordings. Like, it could be the device and the hardware that I'm restricting to, and which, at the end of the day, it's kind of cool, but it sort of drives me a little nuts. Like, oh, okay. Can I just want to break. I want to do this in a studio. This part in the studio. I'll pay somebody. Really.
So,
um,
so this is Master Chef. You've Master Chefed yourself. You've got a mystery box here.
I I guess that's what it is. I don't know what a master chef thing is.
Master Chef is a program I'm just now watching with my wife on a regular basis, and
Oh, okay,
it's
okay.
three famous chefs, and
All right.
they have a competition. And
Uh huh.
one of the elimination challenges is everybody gets this box of ingredients that they don't know beforehand. They
Yeah.
open the box and they have 1 hour to make something from those ingredients, and it's
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. That's how I. I mean, um, that's part of. I mean, the other part of the sauce for me. I'm going to use that. Is the people. Um, like, I'm a community musician. I make music in and for a community of friends and fans and family, and and I like it that way. Like, I I mean, let's see. I am not trying to get the most people, to listen to everything I'm doing. I I want to have a connection to the people I'm playing for. Sort of like at Oberlin, where, I get up there and I look out at the audience and I see people that I care about, or that I've at least seen before, or, that I would want to see again. This is what music has always been, and has always done for me. And so I make recordings with people that I care about. Um, I'm not trying to go for the most talented musician that I've ever heard. I want, the most loving individual that I can find. And then we have a meaningful and good time trying to capture stuff, and then I try and work with it. Um, and the working with it um, can be very difficult, because if I had gotten somebody with professional chops, I wouldn't have to work so hard to get good music out of it. But on the other hand, uh, I don't know. That's what drives me. I when I hear a recording, I want to hear uh, the loving exchange that I had with this person, and it's not all hard work because the musicianship was less. It's not all. There's a lot of very talented people that I work with, but it's not the talent that drives me. It's the love always. Yeah,
I've been listening to your music a lot over the last couple of weeks, and of course, I had heard it before. I
yeah.
want to give you it occurred to me a way of describing my experience with your music. I hope it doesn't weird
Okay,
you out for me to describe your music to you, but I
that's all
want to
right.
know if you're conscious of the effect your music has had on me, and whether it's something you strove for or whether you had no idea. So,
Okay,
are you game?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm gonna sip some water.
Sure, sure.
All right.
For me, listening to your music, I think, has always been, and it took me forever to figure this out. It's like receiving a jigsaw puzzle with a few extra pieces in the box.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
there's like, you've got a full picture, but then there's these
mhm,
extra pieces, and they're supposed to go in the picture, but you have to figure out where they go, and it's a little perplexing.
mm.
Does this resonate with you?
Um, I've used the puzzle analogy before, in a different way, but I like this. I'm kind of circling back to this. So the way I have done music, and I think I still do it that way. I've tried to kind of streamline things a little bit so that they make a little more sense. Because I'm aware that I switch styles pretty regularly within projects, and um, is that like there's a picture and there are pieces, and I'm putting pieces down, and eventually I hope that somebody can connect dots, and that the activity of connecting dots is a meaningful and hopefully joyful and not totally frustrating experience. Um, uh, so that's sort of turning your analogy inside out. You said a few extra pieces, um, and yeah, I kind that resonates. Uh,
So you're
that
actually trying to you're asking more of your audience so that the engagement, kind of like William Faulkner's books, where they're really hard to understand, but as you try to figure them out, something happens to you that's more than just reading a book.
Um, I'd say this was more intentional about 30 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, like I was really actively like, okay, different style. All right, and I'm bored of this style. Let me go to and it sort of got subsumed and became a part of my thing. And with more recent stuff, I know that I play the guitar. I play the guitar. So if it's coming through me and I'm playing the guitar, there's hope that there's like a through line. And I'm hoping, I'm not trying to go for that these days, but it really kind of just happens.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, it just happens.
Well,
um
we've abandoned your biography. Let's go back. You, I think, went to Seattle, University of Washington,
okay.
after Oberlin,
Yes.
and
Yes.
again, the practical
Um
reared its head, and you did biostatistics.
Yeah, yeah. So after Oberlin, I spent 4 years in Ann Arbor working with Rick Sperling at the Detroit Mosaic Youth Theater of
Ah,
Detroit,
okay.
and that's still going. That's all him. I was like the first music director for about like for one show, and then he did that, and I went to biostatistics um, because I felt like I needed a profession. It was time for me to grow up and be a mature, you know, con- contributing person. And well, yeah, I mean, there's been some this tension around that for me.
Yeah.
Uh, I was pretty miserable as a biostatistician. Most of my colleagues really loved the profession, and I was in it for a lot of the wrong reasons. Um, just I mean, frankly, At the time that I was doing it, I was one of two black mathematicians on the West Coast, and I knew the other one, and it was just I felt like, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to represent,
Mm.
um, and that kind of thing. I mean, it sort of a sense of pride initially, but it grew old really quickly. Um, and actually, it was with the election of Barack Obama that I began a pathway out of biostatistics and to try and find who the hell this person is. Me. I mean, who like I don't have to be a scientist. I can do this music thing, but what what else is there? Try
Hold
and
on.
develop that.
You've skipped something now.
I have.
It spilled out of you because you were created Science Groove, this math rock band.
Yes, science group. So yes, I did a dissertation that I did not complete. It's statistical genetics, um, and I left it because I met my wife, and I thought, oh, that's cool. Let me spend some time with this wonderful woman, Lori de Gloria, and graduate school for me turned into sort of a holding pattern. Like I went to get a master's degree so that I could. Oh boy, there's a whole other thing.
Go for it. What's that
I
story?
was
Let's have it.
I I saw myself adopting children with special needs and raising them. There was a woman in Ann Arbor, a physician, who had adopted a white woman, a Caucasian woman who had adopted four, I think, East Indian girls, and one of them was the two of them were girls that at the time I had some extra work in special ed that I was doing to support my art at the time, and but I really felt what she was doing, and I thought, okay, so this is a way I can live. I can use the bios. I can use the math stuff, which is frankly it's sort of a trick. It's not. I don't have a passion for math. It's just sort of I don't know. It's just a thing. It's there,
Hmm.
and you can use the math to raise some kids with special needs. And so I went to graduate school to do that, and they kept. I mean, I really didn't have a lot of direction or a lot of understanding of what I was doing, and I kept being pushed to like, okay, oh, you passed this test. Oh, you did well here. Be the PhD. Okay, I'll be a PhD. Okay, fine. It just gives me more time to think about what I want to do, and let me drive across the country and then and write this dissertation and drive back and write. I was doing a lot of things on the side, uh, including okay, let me put what I've done to my dissertation to music.
Right.
Let me like I'd given up music for about 6 years at the time, and I like, okay, let me unearth this thing and see what happens, and that's where Science Group came from.
Did math
And
rock exist already, or were you right at the cusp of it?
It wasn't a thing. Um, it was that was pretty new. Um, but okay, so what okay so math okay the stuff that I heard of math rock really sucked musically. That was frankly, I was just like, I was appalled at what I was hearing. It was like they weren't musicians, they weren't
Schoolhouse
really
rock
trying.
excluded, right? Schoolhouse rock
Oh wait,
excluded.
wait, Schoolhouse Rock, that's killer. Yes,
Okay,
sorry. Yeah,
please.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, that Schoolhouse Rock, props to that. That was excellent, but not statistical genetics,
Right.
not not I mean, so the stuff that was like deeper, more, kind of academic stuff, that's all papers, or it's some person with a guitar who knows like a chord or two, and isn't it cute we're singing about this. And what I wanted to do with Science Group was like, let's write music. let's write music that people might actually listen to if they didn't even understand the words, which kind of circles back to me just throwing words together as a teenager because oh look, they'll listen to the arrangement if I throw words in there. Well, in this thing, I knew what the words were about, but I felt like, oh, let's use the power of music to get some of those words and concepts in there, but mostly the emotion. Not really. I'm not trying to really teach. I'm just trying to excite. Um, I did this with a partner, Greg Crowther, who still does. He's actually he's a let's see, he's a what do you call it? He's not a physician. He is a physiologist. Physiologist. Um, and he does actually use his music. This the second project, Muscles and Magnets, from that bit. That's topics from his dissertation, not actually things from his dissertation, but things that were related to it. And then he's had a whole career of writing music and teaching it to his students. And props out to Greg. He just got tenure, so I'm really proud of the man. um, anyway, yes. Yeah, so skipping over that, but thanks
So
for.
no, not at all. It's important. I think it's a part of the picture. But you said 2008 because I have a gap definitely between this and 215, which is where your first album comes out. So let's talk about 2008 to 2015.
Okay, okay. So let's see, 2008 to 2015. I started working. I was a faculty statistician at Group Health Research Institute, and at concurrently I was studying. I was studying classical guitar and jazz guitar and getting chops there. Like you know, for years and years, music has been a thing. Like, oh, I'll just get it. But I didn't really know, like theory, and I thought to myself, musically, okay, it's time for me to roll up my sleeves. I'm a mature person. I, you know, um, I had, I'm a married man with with my first house and mortgage and responsibilities, faculty, writing really dry papers, with very smart people. Let me let me do some other work with my music along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, and so I actually have a project from then. Uh, I called it Plan B. Uh, but it was basically putting together note for note um, cover song um, recordings. Uh, like there's a Steve Winwood song, "While You See a Chance, Take It." Uh, well, I got a melodica and I just learned every keyboard thing on the melodica and then played that, uh, with the multi-track thing, and then sung my best Steve Winwood voice that I could muster. And I did like I did "Lovely Day" by Bill Withers and a few other, like a bunch of, actually a host of other songs. Uh, like "Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy" and "Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring," like
Hmm.
other, just okay, it's time for me to try and do things that the masters did,
Yeah.
like exactly like it, and not make any excuses. Okay,
You were very serious about this. You took this
I was
seriously.
very serious. Um, uh, that I, actually too serious. Like
Yeah.
the idea was that I was going to play this solo, like guitar with singing, and like you do "Jesu, Joy of Man's Desire," and then sing the chorus part while singing while doing the classical part on the guitar.
Yeah.
Like, and okay, so I was getting ready to do a performance like this. Like it took years and years, like 5 years. Yeah, it was like 2013, and I was just like, and I took a video and I saw myself, and I was like, oh, that guy isn't having any fun. Like I was just like really just like the eyes were bugged out. My brow was just like this, and I was like, yay, joy, like it just like there was no joy. It was just all,
Did you
you
ever miss
know,
the point of that song? Boy.
um, uh, yeah. And so I decided that I was glad to have some kind of off the cuff recordings that I could then refer to and go, wow, I could play Scott Joplin, The Entertainer. I played that on the guitar, like, and it took me like a year and a half to learn it. Like, yeah, it just, and now I will never play that again. It's just too hard.
Yeah, but Yezu made it on your first album, didn't it?
It did,
Simple Dance.
yes.
Yeah.
So Kirk Van Scoik, he's somebody that I met at Oberlin, but then he's been on Science Groove. He's actually been a partner in crime for about 20 years, and he was kind of he this Plan B. He was just kind of up for stuff. Like he's a very talented banjo player who can play almost anything. I mean, he's amazing. And really fortunate for having him as a partner in crime. But he was just like, I said, oh, I'm learning Yesu. Can you learn Yesu also? And he's like, oh, I mean, the short story is sure I can, you know. And so we did this sort of arrangement where he played, you know, first we played very straightforwardly the Yesu, and then we did the breakout banjo bit, and that was in the 2015 album, Simple Dance.
And to be nice to the audience that doesn't have this song at the tips of their fingers, this is the Bach you hear at every wedding. Da 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 da. And for the
Yep.
music nerds out there, it's from a cantata, so it's from one of his.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, you just got my heart, man. That was
Yeah.
good.
No worries, no worries. So you were is this a big moment for you? 2015 to release, I think your first album that's you.
um, no, it's not my first album.
Okay.
My first album was in 1984. It was called
Okay.
Failures of Success. um,
The early
uh,
years.
very, very early years.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was another album that came after that, some years that was called Soul Stretch.
Oh,
And
okay.
then there was a group called Soul Stretch that
Right.
um, yeah. It, so my wife recognized how well troubled I was with my work. Um, like I all of so my entire time as a biostatistician, I've been waiting for folks to just like either fire me or like in graduate school, like say, okay, you fail, you have to go, and they just never did. And and it was weird. It was just like, wow, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? Like
Passive aggressive strategy was not working.
it totally wasn't working. I mean, I I'd say that I didn't do a bad job, but I wasn't good. Like I wasn't trying to be good. Like I was just like, oh, this is a cash cow. This is a way to earn money, and I'm not trying to be good. And eventually, like at each of my jobs, folks like would take about 4 or 5 years, but then folks would be like, oh, oh, he's not trying to be good. And by the time that happened, I would be going to the next job and promoted. It was terrible. Like
Hmm.
it was terrible for my psyche because I wanted to be caught. I was like a thief who like felt guilty about his crime.
There's a
And
Bruce Springsteen song called Stolen Car, and
yeah,
I think it's about that very thing. I think
that's
it's
it.
about that very thing.
That's it. Yeah. And finally my wife was just like, enough is enough, you know? you need to leave this. And I'm like, well, where would I go? Where, what would I? She didn't really even care. She's like, we'll figure it out. You need to do something else. And so I just did. I left and I made I made this album
Hmm.
um, with some people that I used to work with in biostatistics or just in the research community, and my friend Kirk, um, and started, frankly, the long process of healing myself. Um, uh, on a more serious note, um, like let's see, this album Ideation,
2 years later.
oh, 2 years later, was about a trajectory that I had been suffering from suicidal ideation for a good 25 years.
Wow.
Along with, yeah. So I looked like somebody who was well adjusted, successful, and happy, and I was really struggling with thoughts of suicide.
Hmm.
Um, and that was part of my wife's like, that's it's enough of that. Enough of you. Let's get some people here, to help you out, and we'll figure out, and that was a whole journey. I'd like to say that I went into um, a doctor's office and said that I had these ideations, and that they then referred me to a person who could help. That wasn't the case. Um, uh, a couple of things got in the way of that particular bit. One is that, like, first of all, I look like a person who is, like, adjusted well enough and has energy to do things and what have you. I don't look depressed. The only thing that like a psychologist or psychiatrist um, has to work with when they find suicidal ideation is like like depression or mental illness, and so they have to sort of diagnose you with depression.
Right.
But if you don't score depressive on anything else, like there's this thing called a PHQ-9. It's a public health questionnaire, psychological questionnaire, and it's 9 questions. And if you score a certain thing, uh, okay. The other part of that is I helped develop the PHQ-9, and I helped develop a lot of those psychological assessment tools, and I
Yeah.
used those in the research I was doing with a psychiatrist and other people. And so I knew just a bit too much to really take seriously what you know. Um, so I eventually I just decided, uh, seeing a person about a physical, to score low enough on the PHQ-9 so that I could get help.
Wow.
But it wasn't true answers that I gave. I just gave answers because I knew that I needed to get help. Um, and so um, it's been a long trajectory. It's been a number of therapists and life changes. Um, uh, yeah. So uh,
There's a song
the
on the album called The Boss. Is
yeah
this related to that?
yeah. So the whole album is it starts with being at the sea of despair, and it goes through um, uh, feeling, um, let's see, putting on a brave face, uh, uh, lying, feeling lied to by by life, by a lot of things, like, I'm supposed to feel good if I succeed and I don't. What's um, and the boss is about, okay, I'm gonna see the boss now. I'm gonna, and the therapist, I call the therapist the boss, and I tried to use my best Bruce Springsteen long intro song in my best.
That was
I
my
don't know.
next question. That was my next question.
Yes, yes. So that was yeah. I was like, okay, Bruce Springsteen. He in a Bruce Springsteen song, it would be Clarence Clarence, like with him in the band, like just doing a long intro, and then finally you get to Bruce, who's gonna say a few gravelly words, and and then yeah, I say drive down the street because that's a nod to Bruce, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then the second half of the album is about getting help,
Mhm.
about drugs prescribed and having to wait, having to like psych drugs are just stupid. Like you want help, you're trying to get help. Uh, you finally admit to yourself, you get to the place, and then you get the drugs, or you get drugs if in therapy, and they make you feel worse, or they can. Like
Mhm.
the side effects come up long before the therapeutic benefits. So you take the drugs, like all sorts of things happen. Like you get dry mouth. The worst is like, well, I'll just say it. Your sex drive goes down the tubes. Like it just you're just trying to get better, and you can't. It's just it can be a bad experience. You already feel bad,
Mhm.
and so wait for it is totally that, where you're just waiting for it, and it kind of sucks to wait. um and then at the end of the album, I try to end it in a happy note that I find love with people, and I find my heart. um but the truth be told, that's sort of the beginning. It's the beginning of their lifestyle changes and better choices, and so anyway, this album reflects that journey towards better choices. Um,
Now,
yeah,
I would have had no idea listening to the album that this storyline was in there, which is
yeah,
interesting to me. And I want to talk. For
yeah,
me, I felt like sometimes you use words in a musical way and
yeah,
music to convey what words might convey, and of course the arrangements too. Like for instance, the boss.
yeah,
It's almost like an in joke, but it's supposed to tell me something. Are you
yeah.
are you why not simply like Pink Floyd's The Wall? Everybody can tell you exactly what that album's about, right? They're not trying to hide anything. This album seems to really be challenging us to figure out what's going on. Are you holding back from us, or what's going on?
Okay, so the album is called Ideation. That's used pretty explicitly for suicide,
Hmm.
and only for suicide. Um, like it's not used for anything else. The other thing is, I have the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Hotline on the inside. Of course, you don't have the inside
Don't
of
have
this
the
thing.
inside, right? That might help.
Right, and um, yeah, and there's some words in there. It's like about illuminating what is dark, mending what is broken, calming what is disturbed, loving what is hateful,
Hmm.
making resilient what is fragile, and ultimately living with joy, purpose, and perspective. Um, and frankly, Pink Floyd had a monster of publicists behind them who could say the thing, you know.
Mhm.
And for me, I actually, so I partnered up with a bunch of with not a bunch, a handful of organizations, and did shows around this. Yeah, yeah. So in the abstract, like if you went to my website, which I need to update. I realized there were some links that were like, oh, CD Baby no longer supports these albums. Okay, I need to do something here. Um, but yeah, I apologize. Yes, it would be a challenge if you're not like you know there are these shows. I did shows for about 2 years that were around suicide awareness and suicide prevention in my community. um, and I tried to make this album cover like there's the darkness, and then on the other side it's the sun and the light,
Yeah.
and then like yeah, like the darkness and then the sun coming out, the CD, you know.
So the answer is that you did put everything into this
I
album. It's
tried.
just that as a someone getting it off iMusic, Apple Music, I
Yeah,
can't get it all. You cared about
right.
every element of this. This whole package is the album, not just the music.
Well, yes. Okay, so I work with. Okay, so I'm not visual. I'm not really that visual. Um, so this is like the dark half of the album, and then on the other side, the dark half goes to a light part of the album on the words. You know,
Yeah,
um, I'll send you these.
I love it.
The I work with a very talented man, Chris Munson, and I've known him only 20 years. Um, uh, it's true a lot about a lot of people I work with. I've known them, or it's their children I'm working with. You know, at this point. Um, uh, and he, like I babble at him about what I'm interested in, and he makes like I don't know, like makes stuff like that. Makes me look cooler than I would ever look. Make my band look cool.
Right.
Um,
Does this to you.
uh, it's yeah. And he came up with oh okay, let's do some boxes, flying squares. Let's do that. Let's do some circles here. Okay. Let's do a triangle with Steve Espinola's cat and a gramophone on this album.
Is that Mozart?
It's not Mozart.
That's the
I
new
I
kitty.
think Mozart, rest in peace. I
Okay, so
think
this is the
Mozart.
new kitty.
This is the new kitty. Yes, exactly.
Banjo.
The band. Yes, it's banjo. Oh, damn. All right. Yeah, you know your Steve.
Embarrassingly, yes.
I'm.
If I could be
I'm.
Steve, I would be, but best I can do is just know everything about him and then talk about it all the time. Sorry.
All right then. All right. I shared some. Now you shared some. Okay. um, but yeah, I work with Chris Munson, and he helps bring to life the ideas that of that happen with my albums. Um, yeah.
Well,
Uh,
before we
uh,
get to the newest one, oh, you're going to say,
sure.
please.
No, no, no. I well, yeah. I just wanted to say that the person who took this photo, Aaron Pfeiffer, he's another Obi actually, incredibly talented. He did this. So this is a cool album photo. The whole session was in like a garage with a blanket from his like child. Like he just put that
Oh,
behind, and he made everybody look way cooler than like he showed up and he's like, okay, click click click, and then all of a sudden we're all like, oh, this is a rock star photo. This is like I'll never ever look this good ever. Like,
right.
this is even my big brother who likes to just say all sorts of things. He's like, wow, that's a good photo, and then I knew. Um, but okay, the flip side of that is that he he also was, and I didn't know this at the time, he was suffering from suicidal ideation. And about a year later, he did go to completion. He took his
Mm,
life.
I'm sorry.
And
My condolences to you.
well, rest in peace, his family. And but I'm appreciative of his, like he contributed something to my art, and I just want to, give that love out that he gave to me. Yeah.
Well, before we get to Air and Soul Stretch, I want to ask you. I think there's a Stevie Wonder tribute in here somewhere.
Okay, so yeah, so part of my musical journey, after ideation, I thought, okay, let me do some covers. I got a great band, people I love, and let's, Stevie Wonder is like the hardest person that I can think of to do, for like his,
Gosh,
you know.
that's why you chose him, the hardest person.
Well, I mean, okay, so all right, if Oberlin was the place where the most like original music talent that I could find would ever be, this band that I had with Jeannie Moorfield, who actually I met and sang with at Oberlin, and Zoe Burnett and Kirk Van Scoik. That that was a power. That was these were very talented and committed people who would really actually work to get those Stevie Wonder songs sounding, not like Stevie Wonder, like we did our own versions,
Hmm.
but get them so that we weren't shaming ourselves. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
Like we could do. And there's a lot of folks who try, and it's not musical enough. You gotta be. I mean, that's my experience with Stevie Wonder stuff. Is it's gotta be. He's using all sorts of different things, and we're gonna be as musical as we are with it. To get up to that, you know, to the level of being, doing the song.
So you had some great musicians and you had fruit hanging
Yes.
just at the right level where you felt like, okay, we're going to capture the energy of getting this.
Yes, yes. So yeah, and I also was working with John Ewing and Camilo Estrada, like a drummer and a bassist, like both very like actually both people I met as when I was a biostatistician, and they were like research um, associates, or like I don't remember what they did in the like I would sit in a meeting with them, and I had no idea they played. But afterwards, we kind of well, there was a talent show at Group Health where um, I formed a group called GABA, Group Health ABBA, and we did something called Scanning Queen. And this group
It's a
of
dancing
people,
queen.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. I mean, yeah, you've heard of it, I know. It's, I mean, it was a lot of fun. But these are the people that I went to afterwards, and I said, hey, I'm trying to do an album. I'm trying to, you know, play some live music. Can you help me? And people I had some love for, and they happened to be like, so I can't do Stevie Wonder. Well, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, if I'm gonna have a drummer and a bassist, you need to have some people who just have some serious chops,
Yeah.
and these folks really brought it. So anyway, shout out to both of those guys.
And
They have their own bands.
you
Hmm.
mentioned in your interview, I think a previous interview about this, something that I
Yeah,
didn't know till later, but
yeah,
Stevie often played his own drums on his
yes,
albums, and he is
oh
a
yeah.
phenomenal drummer, possibly one of the best drummers in the world, in addition to being everything else he is.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so yeah. I mean, I really like Stevie Wonder drums. I like that. I mean, now that I play the drums, I know that he's not perfect. He's not perfect. There are more perfect drummers than him, but he. I mean, it's one of these things where like, oh, he understands what he needs on the drums. Like he's playing the keyboards. Oh, he's gonna go over the drums. He's like, oh yeah, I need this. Like superstition. He's like, oh, and it's not perfect. If you play superstition, like, I, he's not using a metronome
Hmm.
because the end is a little faster than the beginning. Because if you have it on loop, it starts slower than it ends. But screw that. It's excellent to listen to. Like
Yeah.
I
When
can't
did
get
that become
my.
a problem?
It's not. Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah. These days, it would never happen.
Right.
uh, but because you quantify everything and then you put it in the right place, you visually, they're like, okay, it's perfect. Oh wait, it's too perfect. Let me move it a little. Okay, now
Right,
it's.
right.
Hmm.
Well,
Um,
so Stevie was always important to you, from what I understand. He's
yeah, yeah. He's been like I didn't even before I knew that he was important. Like I didn't even know that he had written My Cherie Amour or that he had written, or had sung anything before. Oh, I don't know. Before 1975. Like but he was in there.
yeah,
And I only learned about him like in a kind of more scholarly way or more just study of him as after my 20s actually. Like, oh, he wrote that. Oh, he played on that. Oh, he sang that. Oh, man. All right. my father bought this anthology album, like this three, album set, Stevie Wonder, and that went back to before his first hit, like Fingertips, which was when he was 13, like to when he was harmonica and bongo playing guy. And at some point, he just sort of picked up the keyboards. Uh, um, anyway, I'm a big fan. Um, you know, just put me in with everybody else.
Well, dude, here's what I want to do. This recording, I don't
Okay.
want the recording to get too long because it causes
Okay.
processing problems. What
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to do is I'm going to stop this one, and then I'm
Okay.
going to send you an invitation for a second one, and we'll continue. That'll give you a chance to take a quick break, and then
Oh
we'll
my goodness.
continue. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah,
Are
that's
you
fine.
you're not
Yep.
tired?
I'm not tired. I'm just,
Great.
I'm pleasantly surprised that this is going on. I mean,
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm about to press end.
okay,
Watch for another invitation,
I
and then
will.
we'll connect on the flip side. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.